things are continuing to get bigger and bigger for the potential that we are going to see with Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition on the Nintendo Switch. The announcement came out of nowhere, but it is an announcement that's got a lot of people excited, especially for the millions upon millions of people who never owned a Nintendo Wii U and don't do the emulation stuff, but wanted to have a chance to play this very unique and probably the most ambitious game on the Nintendo Wii U system outside of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So we're going to get into that and a lot more RPG news, but before we do, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell to get my Nintendo Switch RPG videos and live streams as soon as they drop. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the first topic here, and we're talking about Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition and the potential and how huge this moment that we're going to talk about is for the franchise. So throughout the history of Xenoblade Chronicles, it's never been a huge, massive seller. There are no games that are over the 3 million mark, but it's been profitable, it's been efficient, and it's helped Nintendo show that the system, despite not being the most powerful when it comes to the Wii, the Wii U, or the Nintendo Switch, can still put out huge, beautiful, open world or open-ended games. And no other game shows this more than Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Nintendo Wii U. And now we have this Switch version that's coming that's going to optimize and streamline so many things to make it a better game, enhance the visuals, fix a lot of the stuff, maybe even have expanded online multiplayer and a finished expanded story as well. This will be, like it says, the definitive version of the game, and so many gamers are really excited about this. People that have never played Xenoblade are even interested in this, or maybe don't like the other Xenoblade games, but they see what the mechs in this game are doing and they see the style and they say, okay, well maybe I can get into this one. And people are also excited because it's not part of the normal trilogy that you have to kind of know the other games. It's a standalone experience that if you do play the other games, you will be able to get maybe a bit more things here and there in terms of the world and lore and all that. But for the most part, you can just go into it and play and enjoy the experience. But now we have an update when it comes to the viewership of Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition and the announcement trailer. And people were wondering exactly how people were going to react to this. It's been a number of days now at this point, and as of November 3rd, 2024, the announcement trailer is over 1 million views already, which is a good bit above the Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition announcement trailer and puts it in line right up there with some of the other big announcement trailers that Nintendo's had for the Xenoblade series. But as a port or a remaster of an older game, this is a great performance for this title. And even if you compare it to the old Wii U Monolith soft title, that was at 1.4 million 11 plus years ago. So you see how much things have changed at this point, where this version has already pretty much matched that, or it's going to beat it out eventually at the end of the day, but it's already almost there. And it's because it's the Nintendo Switch. It's because Nintendo's popularity, what they've been doing, their online presence, everything is just so much better now at this point than it was back in the Wii U days. The Nintendo Switch is obviously one of the best-selling systems of all time. Many people have it as the best system of all time for them. I think it's the best Nintendo system, hands down, and absolutely in the conversation objectively to be one of the best systems of all time. Essentially what's happening here is that we could be having another Xenoblade Chronicles Renaissance movement like we saw with Xenoblade Chronicles 2 back when the Nintendo Switch first was launching, where people really try out the new game and they say, hey, this is something a bit different than what we got before. So I think that Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition has the opportunity to do that. Now, do I think this game's going to have massive selling units? Is it going to be able to break the 3 million mark? Probably not, because it is a port or a remaster of a game that people have played. There's been other ways to go about it and all of that. People have seen it, but I do think that it has the opportunity to actually beat out Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. And the reason why I say that is because Definitive Edition, that game had already been re-released multiple times. We got the original version on the Wii, we got the Wii U eShop version, we got the Nintendo 3DS version, so it had already been released multiple times and people had already been modding it and playing it and emulating it on PC and hacking it and all sorts of stuff that it's been done for the past decade, because the game came out in 2010 in Japan, came out 2011 in Europe, and then 2012 here in the US. So by the time that they re-released it again, which would have been the 4th official re-release, people have already played it, but it's it still did pretty solid. 1.6 million units plus. Not sure where the updated numbers are, but that's still pretty good. Now, with Xenoblade Chronicles X, the game's never been re-released, and there is no backwards compatibility. Thing with Wii to Wii U, backwards compatibility there, so people even use the old Wii version to play it on the Wii U if you're not buying the download version. This one has never been re-released. This is only the second release of the game, and there's so many improvements to the original base and core foundation and stuff that Nintendo hasn't even talked about yet, but even stuff that they did reveal from the trailer and also the information really points this in a good light to make it feel like a more modern game. Not only getting your single player big RPG experience, but also getting a huge multiplayer experience that, based off of some of the rumors and based off of some of the, I would say, digging that people have done, I did a video on it, could have a huge expanded multiplayer Xenoblade experience. And I think that there are people who do want that. I think that there are people who have played the Xenoblade series on the Nintendo Switch and say, yeah, I'm up for something that's a little bit different overall now that the trilogy is done. So I feel that this is a huge next step for Xenoblade to get to this 1 million this fast. If they're looking at some of their older library of games, see how this does. Maybe something else comes from it, but I do feel that this is done essentially for the fans. I don't think that there's going to be some type of extra massive expansion past this or Xenoblade Chronicles X2. I don't think there's anything outside of this game maybe selling 10 million units somehow, which it's not going to do that Nintendo and Monolith Soft look back at this and try to say, okay, we're going to build off of it. I think that this is essentially for the fans, for supporting the Xenoblade series, for making it what it is, and for making Monolith Soft what it is as well, built up to the point to where they're working on the biggest franchises for Nintendo, and it all kind of started in terms of with Nintendo with the Xenoblade series. So I think that's what this is. Fans have been asking for forever, and Nintendo and Monolith Soft finally delivered on their request. So I think that's pretty much the extent of this, but I think it's going to go out with a bang when it comes to Xenoblade Chronicles X, because I trust Monolith Soft, especially after playing Future Redeemed, the DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. They know how to finish things, and I think this will finish it when it comes to that world and what they do in Xenoblade Chronicles X. So I'm very excited for that. But what do you guys think overall with the Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition trailer jolting past 1 million plus views on YouTube? Let me know in the comment section. But now we are going to move on to Yoshi P and what he had to say about 2 classic Square Enix IPs or games that desperately need updates and re-releases. I'm very excited about this because Yoshi P has stated that he would like to see Vagrant Story and Final Fantasy Tactics come back. So shout outs to MyNintendoNews, they got the beat on this one. So Yoshi P, director and designer at Square Enix, has stated in a new interview with Japanese site 4Gamer that he wishes to see both Vagrant Story and Final Fantasy Tactics on current platforms. He says that these are landmark PlayStation 1 games and deserve to be played on modern hardware. Yoshi P also admitted that he is a massive fan of both games. Director Yasumi Matsuno, a remaster of Final Fantasy Tactics has been rumored for the longest time now at this point, and I'd pretty much say that it is true that Final Fantasy Tactics is going to be re-released. I think that Square Enix is just waiting for some reason. Maybe they're waiting for after Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D Remake and Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D Remake. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but that is a thing. The remaster of that is a thing. We've got the Nvidia leak. We've also had multiple other credible sources say that that is happening. So I do think that Final Fantasy Tactics will be released probably in 2025. Now, Vagrant Story is another thing because that is such a weird and complex RPG and would absolutely need some modernizing. Like, there's some things in there that are pretty much game breaking because it doesn't explain it to you well enough. But I think that the story in the game, and I think that what it did was revolutionary for the PS1. For those who don't know the story, or at least don't know what Vagrant Story is about and what it did, I highly recommend some retrospectives to watch on there. I finished the video game, did a great one on this title, and I feel that this definitely needs to come back. They need to remaster it, fix up a couple things, but I think that the gameplay still holds up. I think that it would be able to come out in today's day, and if they just tweaked a few things here and there with the combat system and how you play things, and of course some of the level design and things, I think that it could be a great success story for Square Enix as bringing back a classic game for fans to be able to play. So these are both good. It seems like Yoshi P is talking a lot recently because he has some other things that we're going to go over. But yeah, I would love to see it. I do think that Vagrant Story, maybe they're already working on that. I think that maybe this is a little bit of a coy type of play because he's talking about Final Fantasy Tactics, and we already know that Final Fantasy Tactics is definitely coming. So he's like, oh yeah, I'd love to see both of them. So I think Yoshi P definitely is like hiding something. He didn't reveal everything about this. So could this mean that Vagrant Story is coming back? But I will say one thing, with this, and don't take this the wrong way, guys, when it comes down to like Vagrant Story. But that main characters with this booty hanging out, like of the pants, nah, man, we gotta we gotta change that clothing, man. I don't know what they were thinking. At least that's what I think. It looks like that. I'm not sure. Y'all let me know. But I mean, like, that's probably something that they gotta redesign, man. Like, you can't be rolling around like that. Like, I don't understand why he's rolling like that. Like, I wouldn't if I was him, especially with all those powers he got. Like, I'm not sure why he'd be rolling like that. So yeah, for me, I would just say change that. They gotta remaster it, change that. I mean, they gotta remaster it and remaster that clothing. Just slight little change. It's not that big of a deal. But anyway, at least if that's what I think it is. Outside of that, yeah, I would love to see both of these games come back and them to do really well. I think that Final Fantasy Tactics is a masterpiece. That game is so good. I don't know what Square Enix is waiting for. Some of the other games that have came out, Octopath Traveler and stuff like that. So Octopath Traveler 2 in 2023, maybe they're trying to give some of those classic games some love. And of course, they had a big shuffling when it comes to their leadership and management and all that. So I think that also played a factor into when there was release timings for certain games. Romancing Saga, the remake. I mean, they're trying to spread things out a little bit better. At the same time, they're still trying to make sure that they put out some good games. So we'll see what happens in the future. But what do you guys think about what Yoshi P had to say here with Vagrant Story and Final Fantasy Tactics potentially getting some re-releases on modern hardware? But we are going to move on to another Yoshi P Square Enix RPG stuff, because he's stating that Square Enix will start releasing games simultaneously on more platforms in the future. So this comes from the same interview with 4Gamer. Naoki Yoshida, Yoshi P, was talking about Fantasian Neo Dimension and said that Square Enix plans to launch games simultaneously on more platforms. Quote, "We want you to play the game on other platforms as well," said Yoshida. This time, Xbox Series X/S version will be released at the same time. In the future, Square Enix will release more and more titles simultaneously on each platform, and this is close to the first installment, so I hope Xbox users will play it as well. So I think that this is very interesting because there's been a lot of controversy with Square Enix over the last number of years and their exclusivity deals, or just sometimes they're just deals in general where there's only on Nintendo for, like, let's say a smaller AA type of game like an Octopath Traveler, or only on PlayStation for a bigger Final Fantasy game, or even stuff like Forspoken, for example. So there's been a number of games, and I think that what Square Enix has seen over the course of these years, over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years so of them doing this, is that it's led to lower sales. They haven't been able to necessarily sell as much as they would want. So constantly you're seeing, oh, it doesn't meet sales expectations. It doesn't meet sales expectations, because Square Enix has been investing heavily into these games, and it's brought a lot of angst amongst fans. Fans are like, what do you mean it didn't sell enough? What's the problem here? And if you're looking at it, they're putting a lot of money into these games, and they want a certain return in order to be able to not only make a lot of money for the investors so they can say, hey, we're selling a lot, but also reinvest back into bigger titles. And I think that the biggest problem that they're running into right now is the shifting dynamics of Japan. They didn't necessarily say it in here, but the shifting dynamics of Japan has drastically affected their business. Back when signing PlayStation deals was lucrative and very good for them for their type of games in the PS1, PS2, PS3, and even somewhat PS4 era, it's no longer that way. If you're looking at Japan, for example, that used to be a huge spot for Square Enix, and in some franchises it still is. Stuff like Dragon Quest sells big, but even if you're looking at, let's just say, Dragon Quest Monsters, The Dark Prince, right? That game sold almost as much, or pretty much as much, as Final Fantasy 16 in Japan, with a budget that probably didn't even exceed the hair physics in Final Fantasy 16 when it comes to Dragon Quest. So overall, you have to look at it like this. You're going to invest these huge amounts into these games. You're going to have to shift with the times. I think Square Enix lost out on millions, probably hundreds of millions of dollars, of not making the higher quality AAA type of games multi-platform, but specifically not having it on the Nintendo Switch, as other developers like Capcom raked in millions upon millions with having stuff like Monster Hunter Rise. And I feel that Square Enix definitely felt that. Now, obviously here in the West, maybe you can pick up more sales or even get Game Pass deals for Xbox if you're supporting it. But if you sign those deals, obviously it's not going to get a Game Pass deal, and you're not going to be able to even sell on the Xbox, even if you can sell a couple 100,000 or even maybe up to 1 million. Most of Square Enix games probably won't hit that on Xbox, or will be very close to that million mark if it does get there, but it's still something that can build goodwill with the fan base, in addition to potentially, once again, getting the Game Pass deal. I think that the biggest thing here is making sure that you get some of those games on the next Nintendo system. That is going to be the big key here, because the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to have to carry Japan at this point. The PS5 is too expensive and people are just not buying it. Xbox has been dead in Japan for a very long time. However, the Nintendo Switch still sells incredibly well, selling 60, 70,000 units plus in its 7th, 8th year or so, not getting all of the biggest new games that are coming out on Xbox and PlayStation in Japan. So I do feel that going forward, obviously Nintendo Switch 2 needs to be one of their focal points if they even want to have a base of people buying games in Japan. We saw what happened with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. They still have not announced the sales numbers for that game, and that's definitely not a good thing, because Square Enix usually announces the sales numbers within at least a few weeks. Sometimes they do it right there in the day or the next few days or anything, but they still haven't announced anything for Rebirth. That tells me the game is not selling well. Same thing goes when you look at Final Fantasy 16. They announced those first week sales or so. They have not given a single update. That tells me that their two biggest games definitely are not selling where they want it to. And of course, Square Enix even admitted that in a investor meeting, saying, hey, they did not hit sales expectations for their most recent titles. And that's why they're making so many changes, where they will, quote, aggressively pursue multi-platform development. So that's essentially just kind of putting together all the stuff that we've already talked about for the last number of months on the channel. But now Yoshi P is saying it here for you guys to digest, I guess, in a more interesting way than looking at financial sales reports and all of that. So what do you guys think overall with all the different topics that we discussed, from Xenoblade Chronicles to Square Enix's future games and potentials? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch RPG titles and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.